Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Commish Report for Week 8, Week 8/Week 9 of the NFL season, of our fantasy season. I know I missed last week with the Commish Reports, as Jeff has reminded me over and over again lately. But here we are. You guys get one this week, so lucky you. Quick recap of last week. We had Mike finally regain his testicular fortitude and put up a win on Will. Will being the luckiest man in the league, having scored the second least points, but still has the same record as me, which doesn't make any sense to me. But maybe that golden horseshoe has finally been dislodged from Will's anal cavity. Only time will tell. Let's see. We had Mitch lose to Jimmy by 4 points, which, yeah, that was that hurts. I would not want to be Mitch this week. I had to do that to Will last week. I lost a real close one, and those suck. Those are really awful. Luckily, it was Mitch and Jimmy, so the game really had no impact on the league whatsoever. So that was nice. John won. What else is new? I'm kind of tired of him consistently putting up like 120 points. That's the key, I think, that John's had success. He doesn't put up the most points each week, but he consistently puts up like 120, 130. So last week I scored more than him. Mike had scored more than him. And Josh scored more than him. So it's not necessarily that John's team can't lose. I think he's just very consistent, and you have to have a good week to beat him. And Sippy's never having a good week, so really he wasn't going to win that last week. And then we had Josh really whoop on Kevin, which was that was brutal. I don't think Kevin's definitely not averaging 100 points a game. I'm not even sure that he's averaging like 80 points a game. I'll have to ask Mike to do some math for me on that, because I don't feel like whipping out my calculator and doing some number crunching. But Kevin is essentially the bye week of the league this year, which that's just the way it goes sometimes. When you have injuries and you have players not really work out the way you want, and you draft like you have Tourette's, then you're really just not going to have a good year. So Kevin has proved that, and thank goodness for him to prove that for us and take all these bad players off the waiver wire that we don't really need. That being said, his pickup of Alfred Blue this week I think is pretty good. The fact that John was able to get Chris Polk kind of pisses me off, because the last thing John needs is another running back. But we'll see who of those two gets the most carries. I think it's going to be Blue, just because he's done it before, but we'll see. If they end up going with Polk, then John might just really start to decimate people. But anyway, only time will tell with that. And then we also there was another game last week. It was my game. That's right. That's where I destroyed Jeff. Jeff couldn't even put up 100 points. And the game was essentially over before the 4 o'clock games on Sunday. Jeff just didn't have a chance. As it turns out, me and Jeff were working out a trade that really would have helped him this last week. In that his team wouldn't be complete dog shit. Unfortunately, it is. Speaking of trades, quite a few trades going down. I unloaded Antonio Brown and TJ Yeldon for Larry Fitzgerald and Danny Woodhead. That turned out to be a fairly even trade. Larry Fitzgerald didn't have a great week, but TJ Yeldon and Danny Woodhead both had monster weeks. And Antonio Brown seemed to come back to form just in time for Roethlisberger to return. So we'll see what happens with that. Mike is not out of it. He's only 1 game out of second place in our division. Our division is really awful this year. Second, third, and fourth place in the division are all at 3 and 4. which is pretty terrible. We're like the AFC West a couple of years ago. Whenever Seattle or the NFC West, whenever Seattle went to the playoffs with like a 7-9 record, that seems like that's what's going to happen. I mentioned I was going to add 6 teams to the playoffs. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I will. So we're going to have 6 teams to the playoffs. And so that gives everybody a chance still to do it, unless you're Kevin, because you're not going to get another win for the rest of the year. But going into this week I am taking on Jimmy, and I'm going to win. Definitely going to win. Even if Jimmy didn't have a couple players on bye, I was still confident I would win. For whatever reason, the people Jimmy starts just until his team gets healthy, he's not going to be any good. Until he gets Tony Romo and Des Bryant back, he's really not going to be all that hot. And I don't think Tony Romo, even when he comes back, is going to be able to transition pretty seamlessly. So unless Jimmy gets a couple good wins here and is able to kind of sneak into the playoffs, I don't think he's got a shot. So last week he had a really low scoring, like 86 or 88, whatever he beat Mitch with. It was really small. He beat Mitch with something small. That's funny. There's a joke in there somewhere. I'm not going to pull it out. But, there's no one. So anyway, also, if you look at our teams, the top half of my lineup is just better than Jimmy's, just all around. Cam Newton is, in my opinion, better than Matt Ryan. Latavius Murray, he's got Alfred Morris on bye. And the top half of the lineup, that's where championships are won. I say it all the time. It's all about the top half of the lineup. So I think if you have that, you got a really great chance of winning. So I got myself beating Jimmy this week. And then we got Mike Wimpesinger taking on the Rape Train. And this is going to be the game to watch. They're projected very close. They have a really good matchup here. And they're both fighting for a spot in the division. So I think Mike, if he wins, will have the same record as Jeff. And he will be able to, he'll have that divisional win. And depending on the points scored, Jeff has a lot of points scored, so I don't think Mike will be up there yet. But they could really, Mike could really sneak in there. So that being said, I do have Mike winning. I think Jeff goes on a serious losing streak here. I actually play Jeff again next week, oddly enough. But I don't think Jeff is got what it takes to beat Mike. I think Mike's on a comeback level right now. He's made a lot of really good trades. And if you look at last week, not only did he put up the most points, but he didn't even start his best lineup. He had the most points, and then he had like 40 points on his bench. So I think that's more than just a good week. I think Mike has really turned his team around. And it just goes to show that trading can really help turn your team around and really change the dynamic of what your team looks like. Me and him were actually just talking this morning about another trade that unfortunately is not going to go through. I'm not giving up Allen Robinson for his scrub players. But anyway, so I got Mike beating Jeff there, and then next we got Sippy and Will. This is another good game. Sippy is projected to win by a couple points. But I'm gonna give this one to Sip. I don't like doing that, but I think that, like I said before, Will's had a lot of really lucky wins because he's got so few points scored and still has so many wins. So I think that until Will can put up like 130 points, I think it's gonna be tough for me to pick him, especially for somebody like Sippy who is up and down with his team. But I think Sip's gonna take this one. So then we got Josh and John. That's going to be John. I hate to say it. I hate to pick him. But Josh is just, his team is boom or bust, and John's is just too good. I think Devontae Freeman is projected for like almost 20 points this week, which is ridiculous. He's projected for as much as Tom Brady, which is absurd. And I know projections aren't everything, as we find out every week that they're wrong on a lot of them. Excuse me. But I think that John's going to have another monster week on Josh. So I'm glad I don't play John, but I think only one more time towards the end of the year. And I have a solid 2-game lead in our division. But we'll see what happens. I've been where John is now. I've gone 11-0 to start a season and then lost in the playoffs. So it's all about how the playoffs go. So John's pretty much he's not a lock yet, but he's going to make the playoffs. Actually, I think he might technically be a lock. I'll have to look into that. But it's all about what happens in the playoffs. And as we proved this week, there were 3 different teams that could have beaten him this week, myself included. So a week like this one happens in the playoffs, and John's knocked out. It's that simple. So, John is not the invincible force that he would like to think he is. And last is Kevin versus Mitch. I'm not going to say anything about that game because I just don't care about either one of those people or their teams. So, I'm completely serious. I'm not even going to mention anything about them. I'm not going to pick a team because I could not care less about what happens. So, looking at the standings, let's see what we got here. We got me, like I said, I got a 2-game lead on the division. Behind me is Jeff, Josh, Jimmy, and then Mike. But like I said, Jeff, Josh, and Jimmy, I can't say that 5 times fast. Those 3 chuckleheads are all tied up at 3 and 4. And Mike is right behind them, and Mike's got a decent amount of points scored. So I think Mike moves up this week and ends up beating Jeff for the number 2 spot in the division. If you're paying attention, I'm going to beat Jimmy, and Josh is going to lose to John. So I think Mike has a great opportunity this week to move up. In the other division, we have John at first, of course, still followed by Will, even though he lost this week, but Sippy gains a game on him. Sippy lost a game on him. And Mitch and Kevin, who cares about them? So, they're somewhere in there. So the division to watch is definitely mine and Jeff's division right now. So we'll see what happens this week. I'm excited to see what happens, how people deal with their bye weeks. And that's basically all I have. I was going to make fun of Jeff some more, but I think I'm going to do that in person, or not in person, but over the phone, where I can really feel his reaction because I can't see him watch these reports. So, Jeff, I hope all your players suffer high ankle sprains. Jimmy, you too. Your players can get injured. Stop starting Alfred Morris. I don't know why you still start him. He's not gonna fly. He's not gonna get the carries to be a number 1 back. So start somebody else, especially this week since he's on bye. But anyway, guys, good luck. Have fun this week, and I will hopefully see you next week for the next Commish Report. All right, guys.